Darran O'Sullivan is with us to talk to us about the best teammate that you ever played with, Darran. That was high praise in your tweet yesterday.
Yeah, I suppose I might have upset a few fellas there, but I think a lot of them would have probably joined me in saying that about Kieran. There was just something about him. He always kind of sacrificed himself and made time for everyone, and he's just that type of fella.
How much does I saw you tweeting about this yesterday, how much does Kieran Donaghy have to thank players like you for giving him good delivery time and time again from 2006 onwards?
Well, I'm glad you put it up there. You put up the clip of the Longford game, and I used to always be winding him up, kind of saying to him, don't forget who gave you your first long ball, I started it. But no, for us it was a matter of time, just put it in there. He was so good. It didn't matter if it was a 80-20 ball in his favour, or if it was 80-20 against him. He'd a way of doing it. Even for David Clifford's goal this year against Monaghan, he has this knack of knowing everyone around him, where everyone is, and he just made every ball look good, to be fair at times.
Darran, what's your recollection of the first time you played with him? Do you remember that? Like, do you remember kind of thinking, ooh, this is a bit different?
Probably the Longford game, because my game at the time was all about get it, go, myself. Whereas it was a great outlet to have, that you'd know that you don't have to run this at all, because Kieran's inside, or I can bomb this in and toss him, and 9 times out of 10 it was going to stick, and he was going to shovel it off to Gooch or whoever was inside with him, and we'd get something out of it. It just gave us an extra dimension, and as someone playing outside the field a lot at the time, it gave you peace of mind that, you know what, if I'm stuck, I can put this in, the big man's going to win it, and something's going to come out of it.
Had you seen that in training, or like, so it's interesting you picked the game. Did you know in the weeks up to that this was a possibility?
I was actually trying to remember back yesterday, and I couldn't remember if we'd worked on it a whole pile. Probably a small bit, but I don't think there would have been a whole pile of work gone into it. I think we kind of knew Kieran's strength. Jack would have known which areas he'd prefer the ball to go in, and we picked the diagonal ball that he'd be able to get a good run at it and get a good view of the ball coming in. I can't remember working on a whole pile. I don't remember ever being there in training, putting in a few balls to him or anything like that. I'd say probably the game against Longford was probably the first long ball I'd ever put into him. Might have done it once at training, I'd say, probably in the build-up, but that'd be about it.
That's incredible to think, isn't it? Because it's often lauded as one of the most important tactical shifts in Gaelic games this century, really. It's certainly in the course of that Kerry team. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, that was kind of practiced time and time and time again, and they finally fine-tuned it. But there was kind of a great sense of, you know, the unknown about it, where he just tried it out and it worked beautifully, and he just kept doing it.
Yeah, well, I think it was a bit like that. Like, I suppose at the start of the year, Jack probably wouldn't have thought about it, and he might have been giving it a lot of thought, because I do know he tried out different fellas in that role at the start of the year. So I know it was in his head to try something like that, but maybe Kieran wasn't the original, because I know a club mate of mine, Adrian O'Connor, who's now in New York, was tried out there during the McGrath Cup, but I don't think it worked out quite as well as Kieran.
Jack, you're there. Good morning, Jack O'Connor.
Morning.
So let's talk about this tactical shift there. Darran says it wasn't tried out too much, it was just a give and go, just tried out against Longford. What was your memories of that? Whose idea was it actually?
I think it was born out of necessity, to be honest with you. We struggled in the Munster Championship that year. We played 4 games in the Munster Championship, including 2 games against Cork. We played, I think, Waterford, maybe Tipperary. And we were really struggling up front. The ball wasn't sticking in the full forward line. We weren't scoring goals. We weren't even creating goal chances. And ironically enough, Kieran was sent off, not quite sure for what, in the Munster final drawn match in Killarney. And he wasn't available for the replay up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. We got well beaten up there, played poorly. It was the famous day when Declan O'Sullivan, our captain, got booed off the pitch when he was taken off. So things were at a pretty low ebb, you know. So I think it was born out of necessity, really. We knew as a management, and I knew instinctively that evening we needed a radical change here, because what we were doing wasn't working, and we needed more than anything. We needed a change of style and a change of focus. And sometimes when you when you go back into training the following week, you can't keep throwing the same stuff at fellas. You need to do something different, and you need to do something radically different. And that's where the idea came from really. Kieran had played midfield, where he would have seen himself as a more natural midfielder, than a full forward up to then. So we decided to try and full forward, and contrary to what Darren was saying there, I was a bit obsessed with it, because I kept saying to fellas, listen guys, we'll try the other way now. We're going to have to go more direct. And a lot of what we'd have done in the first minute leading into the Longford game would have been about trying to get, the proper type of service into Kieran. And, I did even checked it out with fellas like Mark O'Shea, who would, after training, I'd have put Mark in, marking him and thrown in a few high balls myself even. And I'd have asked Mark, how do you find him? And he'd say, Jesus, he's a real handful, So we were confident enough that he would make an impact in that Longford game. Now, we know in our wildest dreams, we think that he'd have the impact that he had,
Was it instantaneous? Was it like as soon as it happened, did you realise, okay, we've got something here? Because Owen Brosnan scores a hat-trick that day, and everybody talks about the impact that Star has.
Well, I'll give you a stat so that'll tell you that'll tell you better than anything what impact he had. In the 4 games before Longford, we hadn't scored a goal. I don't think we'd even created goal chances. In the 4 games we played after, including the Longford game, we scored 11 goals. So that would have been, that a lot. I think he might have scored 2 of those goals himself, but I reckon he had a hand in maybe most of the rest of them. So that alone tells you the impact he had, and it just revitalised our season. It gave us a bit of confidence back, gave us a bit of direction, and he was new on the scene, and people weren't prepared for him. So you're telling me there that maybe we hadn't a whole pile of time to work on what we were trying to do with Kieran. Well, the opposition hadn't a whole lot of time to work on dealing with him, So certainly it worked beyond our wildest dreams, to be honest with you.
And so you were obsessed with it. Was that obsession with trying to get him into the full forward line all season and kind of getting up to a level of understanding how the game worked with the Kerry seniors up to that point, or did you kind of had you seen him as a midfielder up until the Cork game and you realised you needed something different?
Well, you see, you must remember that Kieran was only trying to find his feet at inter-county level. He'd been on the edges of the scene, but that was his first year. Kind of trying to nail down a spot on the team, and would have been a big ask to flake him in full forward straight away. And because you see, it's full forward, you don't get your hands on the ball an awful lot. You might. You get a lot more ball at midfield, especially a guy of his height, 6'4", 6'5". So, it worked in reverse. To get him ready for full forward, you almost had to make sure that he had played a bit of time in midfield, so that he would, he got a bit of possession, and felt that he could play a part. And I had said that to him, when we put him in at 14. I said, look, if it works out for you, fantastic. If it doesn't, you go back out midfield. So don't feel that you're under too much pressure, because the inside line is the hardest thing in Gaelic football to do is to feed the inside line properly. And I knew it was a bit of a risk and a bit of a punt, but we had nothing to lose at that stage. So it was important that he started out midfield, early in the season, just to get his a bit of grounding and to get dip his toe in the water. But it would have been a huge ask to put him straight in there from the word go,
There's a tweet in here from Dan Morris saying Donaghy will rightly go down as a Kerry great, but also the ultimate in shithousery. Darren, is that something you'd agree with?
Kieran was well able to look after himself, yeah, but he'd only give as good as he got. The problem most defenders had was he was quicker with the tongue than they were. So if you wanted to get into a slagging match, you want to have a few days to prepare stuff, because Kieran was well used to it from the basketball. But any game I ever saw a bit of stuff going on, he'd never instigate anything, and you'd want to be a brave man to start giving him a bit of guff, because like that, a high ball would come in, he'd catch it and next to me a goal, and he wouldn't be long telling a fella to quieten down a small bit. But he'd never go out and start it himself, but he was well able to look after himself.
Darren, the aftermath of the Longford game where you realise, actually, hang on a second, we're still a team here and we have a chance. Like, retrospectively, we all know how amazing that team was and the superstars that are in it and the character that they showed over the rest of that decade to go on to become one of the greatest teams that Kerry has ever produced. At that time, though, coming off that defeat against Cork, there must have been significant doubts. So the galvanising effect that somebody like Donaghy has, being a complete breath of fresh air, being a complete revelation as a full forward when he'd kind of been buried in the depth chart as a midfielder. What's your recollection of that period and that training sessions? Because it's Armagh next, and then you get Cork again in the semi-finals, and then obviously the final against Mayo.
I suppose the difference in the Munster final and the Cork game, the quarter final, is we were completely different team. Like Jack said, we'd changed our whole approach at that stage. We knew exactly how dangerous Kieran was at that stage, and Kieran is that kind of character. Like, the one way I always describe him is he's infectious. If Kieran's in good form, which is most of the time, he carries fellas with him. And you can imagine, he was 21, he was being thrown in full forward, and he took to it like a duck to water, and his confidence was booming. Fellas were getting form off his confidence as well. And everything just went through the roof after that. It was like, high ball came in, it worked, he set up a great goal, and all of a sudden fellas knew that if we're in trouble here, Kieran's inside, no one's going to stop him. So we could play two types of game. Then I think it just made it even harder to play against us, because of the quality player we had all over the field.
Jack, 3 goals in the first 15 minutes from a tactical gamble like that, it obviously feels like a masterstroke, but it is kind of the start of this impact that happens that summer, really, as you talked about the goals. Like, do you remember the mood shifting and just a lightness coming in after that, or is it only after the All-Ireland final that year that you kind of get to go and relax?
No, there was especially after that Longford game, as you know, the Kerry followers are fairly demanding, and the mood amongst them was buoyant, to be honest with you. They felt we discovered a new bomber, and we know how to affect Bomber had on the 4-0 team, and they felt straight away that this guy could make a similar impact. Now, I think the Longford game was great for confidence and for getting us off the field. That we had a bit of a chance again, but I think the real game was the Armagh game, the quarter final in 06, because you must remember that up to then the wind being thrown at Kerry is that they couldn't beat an Auburn team, and that was a very, very good Armagh team. They had beaten Kerry in the 02 final, and Kerry had been beaten in 03 and 05 by Tyrone. So the word was that Kerry couldn't beat either Tyrone or Armagh. So that was a massive game for us. And there was one pivotal moment in the game where Darran O'Sullivan put in the perfect diagonal ball from way out in the wing, and Donaghy was 1-on-1 with Fancy Bellew and caught it over his head, turned and stuck it in the net. And that was the moment, I think, when Kieran himself realised, Jesus, I belong here. And I think it was a moment that liberated all of us, made us all feel that, we've got the missing piece of the jigsaw here. So, that was a big moment in the Armagh game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Darren, you scored the third goal that day, I think.
Yeah, would have been my first goal for Kerry. I think Jack had been waiting a year and a half for me to do something, so it's about time.
Yeah, it sounds like that was when you come back from the defeat and the despair of the Cork game to actually win the All-Ireland that year, like that, those stories don't really happen in sport. Normally what happens is a team gets beaten and you drift off and rows happen and everything breaks out, but all of a sudden this kind of messiah arrives. It must have been good crack being around training those days, Darren.
I was. We had some good characters that were always out to catch each other out anyway. And I suppose, as Jack said, Kieran kind of realised during that run that he belonged, and he became an even bigger character. He got more comfortable inside there, and like that, everyone just fed off the confidence as well. When things are going bad, things get a bit droll, I suppose, around the dressing room. You're starting to feel a bit negative, but one quick turnaround, and as Jack said, the goal against Armagh, he did it against such an iconic fullback, I suppose, in Fancy Bellew, and our whole confidence lifted, getting the monkey off the back, beating a very strong Armagh team as well. And like that, you just start to believe again. And as I said earlier, we had a lot of very strong characters, a lot of messers in that dressing room. So once the tide is turned, you just start going with it. And our curve was always on the up after that.
Jack, is there a future Kerry manager potential in Kieran Donaghy?
Who knows? He certainly has a good presence and good ideas about the game. But it's early to be talking about him making that jump. I know he made a fair jump with us in 06, but that's a higher hurdle again. I'm sure he'll get involved in coaching in some shape or form because he has a lot. He has a lot going for him. He's learned a lot from basketball as well, and we all know that basketball and Gaelic football, have crossovers from a coaching point of view. So he certainly has the ability to contribute in that area, no question.
The substitute appearance against Mayo to rescue that semi-final before the replay, for me that's kind of the impact of somebody who doesn't have the ego that a lot of people would have at that stage of their career. It's almost kind of like almost his greatest achievement in some respects, Darran.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the thing, the fella who'd done it all. He had the Player of the Year, he had the All-Stars, he had the All-Ireland. The last couple of years, he was willing to do whatever it took, even if it meant getting no game time and talking to fellas, and he wasn't a fella who'd ever mope. He'd never let it be known that he was disappointed. You'd never know if he was getting annoyed with the situation. He was there for the cause, and the cause was helping Kerry win All-Ireland and helping the younger fellas come through. And his attitude kind of brushed off on everyone around that stage. And I suppose that year he hadn't even been brought on against Galway, I think, so he had even more reason to be disappointed, but he never showed it to the group like that. He came on, made the difference, and probably was the reason we ended up winning the All-Ireland in the end and won another All-Star.
Yeah, fair play to him. Lads, it's been great to hear your memories of him. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
Darran O'Sullivan and Jack O'Connor talking to us there this morning.